Welcome to the Spooky Owls. My name's David. I'm the editor of Spooky Owls online magazine, www.spookyowls.com. The Spooky Owls is a website that focuses on lots of parts of the paranormal, horror and dark history. And one of those that gets a lot of interest and a lot of controversy are psychic mediums. And I've known quite a lot of psychic mediums over the time running Spooky Owls, and one of them that I've met, who I trust because I feel that he's a good bloke, is a bloke named Andy Chaplin. He's based in Hertfordshire, and I thought I'd ask him on tonight to have a bit of a chat with him about what he does and basically how he became a medium. Now, when I say I trust him, I'm not saying I necessarily know or agree that he has psychic ability, but he doesn't seem like the kind of person that's out to make a rip anyone off. And I think in this world that we live in, there are quite a lot of people who class themselves as psychic medium that may, be out there for themselves rather than for the goodness of what they can do for others. So, hello, Andy. How are you tonight?
Hi, David. Yeah, thanks for your credit there. So, yeah, much appreciated.
Oh, we'll see if that credit continues on into the night, depending on how it goes. But yeah, how are you doing? We're currently filming this while everyone's still in lockdown because of coronavirus. How are you coping?
Yeah, I mean, it's gradually making me slightly insane, more insane than I normally am, but it's okay. I think so long as the sun keeps shining and people stay indoors, apart from their one, exercise per day, I think we'll get through this. Cross fingers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as we said, you're here tonight to talk about yourself being a psychic medium. Can you maybe explain what the difference between a psychic and a medium is? Because that's something I haven't really quite understood over the years.
Yeah, it's a confusion a lot of people have. The best way I would describe it as is a psychic will tune into, if you like, the universe, and it's more. I suppose you could call it like a psychic Google. It's like if you imagine like a universal information field, where a psychic, for instance, goes to a location and kind of picks up information about what that location is about, what the history is about. And that kind of thing. So it's more kind of information based. So you might get dates, you might get feelings, you might get visions of what happened there. That's more of a psychic level. Mediumistic is when you get a soul or a conscious entity interacting with you. I.e. they come along and they say, my name's Jane, I was born in 1876, all that kind of thing. And you might get a vision of what they look like, how they passed, and they might start giving you information about themselves and their family as well. So the difference is psychic is more kind of information based. Mediumistic is where you have a conscious entity involved.
Okay, that's a little bit hard to get my head around, but it makes a little bit of sense. So, how long have you known that you've had psychic medium abilities?
I would say from year one, literally year one. So I'll give you one of my first experiences. And I remember this very vividly, and that the memory has not changed. I believe that when spirit interact with you and they kind of test to see whether you're open to these kind of energies. So I was in my cot, and I remember that, and it was upstairs. And I've given this description to my mum, and she said the way that I've described it is exactly how it was, where the cot was positioned. The light was on, so light was coming into the room. And I remember very clearly, like a very deep male voice, not really scary, but just unnerving, saying, "Hello, what's your name?" Which sounds kind of comical, but it was a lot deeper than that. Just imagine like a big kind of like bear type character kind of saying that. So it was, "Hello, what's your name?" Now I could see there was no one in the room. My family were not in the room, and this actually happened on more than one occasion, so that it wasn't just the one time. I'm pretty sure I wasn't hallucinating. It wasn't a dream. I was very much awake, and this is like stuck with me for years. I believe now it was actually my spirit guide to test to see if I was ready to open myself up to those energies, because I think that when psychics and mediums come to this planet, they either have a soul contract or they have like a mission in life. And I think when you come to this earth as a medium and a baby, you might not be aware what that mission is. So they will test you, and they will basically see how I reacted. I reacted by shutting down. It freaked me out. I was like, this is not normal, even though I was a baby. This is not normal, shouldn't be happening. I wanted it to go away. So I shut my energies off, and it did back off. It tried it a couple of times and then it backed off. Had I sat up out of my cot and said, "Oh, my name's Andy," and started a conversation. I think the way my life would have gone would be more like Sixth Sense. I think my intuitive and clairvoyance probably would have gone exponential, and I think I would have had a lot more ghostly, spooky, paranormal type activities as I was growing up. But because I shut it down and it backed off, it took me probably until I was around about sixth form area, probably about 18 or so. When would it be? 16, 17? I forget, so long ago. But it was that type of era that I began to have an interest in paranormal things and started going to kind of haunted locations. So I would, with a friend of mine who I won't name, but we got a book on the haunted locations within East Anglia, and we just went everywhere. So I have actually visited Borley Rectory. I didn't actually pick up anything particularly psychic or mediumistic there, but it's got a very strange vibe. The actual churchyard in Borley Rectory, all of the gravestones at that particular time, they seemed like they were smashed or they were kind of like cut in half for some odd reason. It wasn't just one or two, it was like everywhere. So could have been vandalism. I don't think it's anything paranormal, but it was just a very strange vibe. And a kind of funny story there, as we were there walking around, I think this was actually during the daytime, during the week, so it wasn't really a weekend thing. There was no one else around. And we saw like somebody doing their garden, and he kind of like, he kept giving us strange looks, and so we kind of walked around, tried to looked through the window of Borley Rectory, not actually the rectory because that's burnt down, but the churchyard there, which is also apparently haunted. And we were kind of like looking around trying to see something, took a few photos, nothing really paranormal happened, but we were going back to the car, and then a police car came along and they kind of like asked us what we were doing, and we basically told them we were looking for a little chef, and they kind of gave us a very kind of wry look, kind of like, we know what you're up to. So they just went off, and then we went off. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it, really.
So how did you develop your skills, though? Because I mean, how does it? Well, first, tell us how does it work? Are you walking down the street, hearing voices all over the place? Do you work into a place? Do you? How's it?
Okay, I'll tell you how I first got into it, and then I'll go into that side of things as well. So how I got into it, really, I've always had an interest in UFOs, ghosts, paranormal, anything of the woo-woo nature all the way through my life. I used to watch Strange But True with Michael Aspel. That was fantastic. Was my favourite show at one point. So I got into it in 1999. I had a little black and white cat called James, I think I called him. Quite a long time ago, and he went missing, and I looked everywhere, couldn't find him, put missing posters up, couldn't find him at all. My last resort was to go and see a psychic, so I went to Epping, and there was a lady there that was very much recommended, and she was actually very good. She wouldn't really she's not really kind of mediumistic as in speaking to spirit, but she was quite psychic. So off I toddle. I think it was an autumn night time. Got into her kitchen. She reminded me very much of, I don't know if you remember the Crystal Maze and Mumsy in the Crystal Maze. She was exactly like Mumsy. It was kind of, I had to suppress my laughter a little bit because she looked like Mumsy. She sounded like Mumsy. She's like, "Come in and sit down, love," and let me try and tune in for you. Now with her, she tuned into a lot of things in my life that were either true or then later proved to be true, which was really interesting. And at that particular point, I was kind of on the fence as to whether psychic mediumship even existed. I was kind of like, not exactly testing her, but I was withholding information. I wasn't giving her anything. I wasn't feeding her anything. I was just holding back. But she was hitting the nail on the head time and time again. I was thinking, maybe there's something to this. So roll on a couple of years. I didn't actually find the cat. I think he was actually, I think he was probably run over, possibly. But over the years, things came true that she was saying, and that was really interesting to me. So I then found myself going to a theatre show, what's known as a platform demonstration, with a guy called Keith Charles, who ex-CID police officer, who then became a medium. And he said the crucial words of how I got into this. He said that if you're interested in this subject and you want to find out if you're psychic yourself, go and join a development circle at a spiritualist church or spiritual centre. So I think, ding, little light bulb goes off in my head. I think this is quite an interesting subject area. I've always been interested in this. Let's see if I've got it. So I toddle off to, I think it was Hoddesdon Spiritualist Church and Cheshunt Spiritualist Church. And for anyone who doesn't know what a development circle is, it's literally a group of people sat sat together. And the reason it's called a circle, you literally have chairs in a circle, so you're facing each other, sitting in a circle, and you do different exercises like meditation, that kind of thing, and you're also tuning in on each other. They'll give you techniques on how to tune in. Sometimes it's using cards or ribbons or crystals. Sometimes it's connecting with spirit. And I was finding that some people were going at a fairly slow pace, some people were going at a fairly average pace, and some people were flying. And for whatever reason, I was kind of flying with it. The more information I was giving, the more information I was getting. It was kind of a cycle, I suppose. I then ended up on kind of like psychic chat rooms, and this was back in the day of dial-up modems. So this is how long ago it was. Literally kind of like 64K modems or whatever it is. So I entered a few kind of like psychic chat rooms. It wasn't for any money or anything like that. It was just for the fun of it. So tapping away, and I was finding I was connecting with people on the other side of the world. Sometimes Australia, sometimes America, Canada, Europe, all over the place. And I was picking up on things, and I couldn't even see what they looked like. So I was going just by a name in a chat room, and I was getting of what they might look like, names connected with them, circumstances around their lives, and I thought this is actually quite fun. I quite enjoy this, and I, in actual fact, I started off on a psychic level because the mediumistic level scared me a little bit. I didn't like the idea of ghosts and spirits around me. I was kind of like, "Woo." So I was quite happy with the psychic level. But then what started happening is, as I was getting the psychic stuff, I would then get like a cold tingling sensation as I was typing on the keyboard. And then I would start feeling like somebody next to me. But it's a weird thing. It wasn't in the case of like a haunting or a poltergeist or like a scary, nasty feeling. It was kind of quite a loving feeling. It was kind of a comforting feeling. And I thought, actually, I think I've got this person's relative here. I would start giving information of what I feel this energy was talking about. And the people then were confirming that to be true. And I was thinking, oh my God, okay, I've crossed the barrier into mediumship. So that's basically how I got into the mediumship side of things. In terms of whether I'm hearing things as I'm walking in the streets every day, the answer is no. The reason is, number one, it would drive me batty. I think anyone who would kind of like hear voices 24/7 they'd end up in a nut house. And I'm wondering how many people in lunatic asylums historically may have actually been mediums that couldn't switch it off. So there's that. I think the difference between mediumship and, for instance, psychosis or schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder, I think it comes down to what the information is. Because funnily enough, during the moments when I was doing psychic chats in chat rooms, one of the moderators in the chat rooms was actually a psychiatric nurse. So she dealt with people that had schizophrenia. And I asked her, because I was still in the early stages of wanting to know all about this, how do I know that I'm not completely nuts? How do I know that this is not schizophrenia? And she said, it's about what the information is. So for instance, somebody with schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder or anything like that may be thinking the pigeons are talking to me, and then you ask, oh, what are the pigeons saying? Oh, the pigeons are saying I should paint my room pink and wear a tuxedo or something like this. This is just silly examples. None of that is psychic, none of that is clairvoyant, none of that is mediumistic. Unfortunately, that is a mental condition, a medical condition. So with mediumship, the difference would be, is the information true and correct? So is the medium giving information where somebody can say, yes, that does sound like my nan, she did look like that, her sister's name was Ethel, she did live in Australia for 16 years. Once you start getting that kind of information, that's different from the schizophrenia or mental illness type condition. But you do have to switch it off, and also you do have to focus on it in order to do it. So for instance, when I was sitting in a chat room, my focus was, I would like to tune into spirit and I would like to get information for people. Whereas when I'm in Tesco's, I'm thinking, what's on my shopping list? I'm not thinking I need to tune into spirit. So that would be the difference.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, basically, it's an activity that you do, and I'm either sitting here talking on the computer, or I'm going out to the shop. So I could either do one or the other. It's a bit like that. So, what does it actually feel like, though? What you talked about tingly fingers when you were typing on your computer before, but does it sound like a person's talking to you like I am, or are they giving you hints? What does it feel like when you're doing what you do?
So mediumship works in different ways, and different mediums get it in different ways. So some mediums may hear things externally, and on a regular basis. That's not really me. I have heard things externally. Those are other stories I can come to. Um, but really, it's more. It's not a full blown conversation. The best way I can put it, it's almost like a conversation of a long distance telephone call of somebody that's far away, and you can just about make out what they're hearing. And there has to be a few different things in play here as well. The person receiving the information has to be open and ready for it. Sometimes if people are kind of like blocked or closed down, it's going to be very difficult to kind of tune into them. It's also up to the medium to be in the right frame of mind. So if you're flustered and you're panicked and you're feeling kind of quite down, that's going to be incredibly difficult to tune into. And also it depends on the spirit energy as well. Some spirits are very forward and very loud and you can get it bang on. It's like boom boom boom. Other times you're kind of really listening out, and it could be kind of a very distant. Was that a Margaret? Was it a Mary? And this is why actually some mediums, they come under criticism for kind of cold reading and that kind of thing, where they might hear a name and they're putting different interpretations. Is it a Matt? Is it a Mark? Is it a Malcolm? This is because they can barely kind of work out what's being told to them. So imagine I'm saying to you, like, I don't know if that picks up on the microphone, but it's very distant and it's very kind of can't quite get it. So some mediums might be getting that, and some mediums it might be, my name's Mary, and then they're very kind of like confident that the information that they're getting is correct and will pan out.
Okay. Some obviously I'm not going to say misconceptions, but I often hear, well, if you're a psychic and can you tell the future? Can you give me the lotto numbers?
Then we get into karmic law. Yeah, this is where we get onto the kind of the ethics, the morality, and kind of the karmic law of the universe. This is going into a slightly spiritual direction. So, for instance, yes, you could try and get the lotto numbers, but it's a case of need or greed. So I think in terms of kind of giving readings and charging for readings, most mediums have bills to pay, rent to pay, food to put on the table. So that's our justification for charging money. Most mediums won't charge that much. £30 for 30 minutes or 40 for 40 is kind of like the going rate. Like the top end mediums might be doing 100 quid or 200 quid or whatever. But I think once you start going into the territory of getting the lottery numbers, that veers into more kind of the greed or misusing the power of it. So what you would need to kind of appreciate is that with spirit working with you and with the universe working with you in a psychic and mediumistic level, it should be on a moralistic it should be about spirituality and being a moral person. So if your next course of action is, oh, I'm psychic, go for the lottery numbers, you may well win, but you may have something else going horrendously wrong in life to counterbalance it in a weird karmic way. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Uri Geller tried something like that, and I think he did win an amount, but then something else tragic happened in his life. And I think it's kind of like a counterbalance type thing.
It's a bit like the monkey's paw. There's a story there where a family does a similar thing where they have 3 wishes, and the 3 wishes create much more havoc in their life than it would have been if they hadn't done it. So yeah, so I can understand that now. So moving into sort of, you're talking about the psychic readings, but what about, you love a good ghost hunt?
Oh yeah.
You've done lots of them. Can you tell us maybe about some experiences where you've maybe used now that I know the difference, used your mediumistic abilities to find out more about a supposedly haunted location?
Okay, so I can rattle through a few actually. So one of them would be Harrow Arts Centre, obviously in Harrow. I was with a ghost hunting team. They booked out the entire place at quite considerable cost for the evening. And this is quite interesting. So they were moving all of their kit from the car park through a couple of fire doors into the theatre. And when I mean kit, the kind of like the ghost hunting EMF readers and all the electronic bleepy stuff that I don't really understand, but they brought that all in, TV cameras and all that kind of thing. I say TV cameras, it wasn't kind of like a TV show, it was monitoring cameras.
Yep.
So they thought they'd had everyone inside, they brought all their kit inside, they locked the fire door, shut the fire doors. As they were walking along, they heard the fire doors rattle. So they thought, oh, we must have left someone in the car park. So they went to the car park, open the doors, nobody there. So that's quite interesting. Moving along, Eastbury Manor. These are all kind of ghost hunts that I've been involved with.
Yep.
Eastbury Manor in London, residential estate with an Elizabethan large, beautiful manor actually. So we're in there. A couple of stories that I heard before actually before actually working. So the team arrived before the public. This was a public event. Team arrived before the public. There's a couple of girls there that went to the toilet in the ladies' toilets, obviously. Sat down doing their business. They heard a cubicle next to them, kind of like the door open and close, and the lock. And it happened a couple of times, which they thought was odd in quick succession. And I thought, that's a bit strange. I think somebody's playing a joke here. So she quickly jumps up, opens the door, expecting one of the staff members to do, surprise kind of thing. There was nobody there, nobody there at all. So that freaked out the ladies. They refused to use the toilets from then on. So I don't know how they kept their liquids in, but yeah, that was quite interesting. On that same night, which I was involved with as well, there was what's known as the Long Gallery. It's a gallery and it's long, pretty self-explanatory, really.
Yeah.
There was a load of Tudor beams, very kind of like ornate kind of Tudor beams with strips of green lighting. I think they're kind of like emergency fire exit type lighting, but there were strips of green lighting. We turned off all the white lights, so there was only green lights there. There was a group of the members of the public sitting down in a circle, and I was the medium that was leading this particular group. So what had happened, there's about 200 people split into different groups of about 20 with different mediums in different parts of the building. We were in the Long Gallery. I said, if there's anybody there, can you show us a sign? If there's any spirit, show us a sign. Instantly, boom, like that, a strip of green lights went out. So to me, there's only two explanations. Either a fuse had gone or somebody had flicked the switch. So I was right by the switchboard. I would have absolutely seen anybody there that would have come along to flick the switch, because it wasn't pitch black. It was green lit.
Do you need something like that? Because can the spirit or whatever the manifestation is, can it not just speak to you or give you some kind of, rather than sort of showy type of flicking a switch? Surely they can say, Andy, I'm over here, or something like that.
I think it's up to them. I think we're working by their standards. I think.
Do you ever have that though? Do you ever have that? Where
Yeah, I have. I'll come to that. I'll come to that. But I'll stick with this for the moment. But remind me again, because that's a separate incident. So I was standing by the switchboards, and I managed to switch the lights back on. So the green lights came back on with the flick of a switch. So that indicates that it can't be a fuse. So that was pretty mind blowing. Do you want me to go on to the kind of the auditory thing before I go on to the next story?
If you want to, yeah. Tell us about that, about hearing things, yeah.
Okay. So this is quite an interesting one. So I was visiting a friend probably around about the year 2000. I live in Ware. My friend lived in Ongar, and that meant going along the A414, which goes past Harlow. On this particular occasion of driving back, it was quite late at night, and I was busting to go for a pee. Now, there was a little lane. I couldn't quite wait till we were going home, till I was at home. So I had to take a pee. So what I did, I took a little left-hand side down this little country lane, and parked up, doing my business. And I thought, I really hope there's no kind of police or kind of anyone driving past seeing this, because I've obviously had to explain myself, and I don't want to get into that kind of drama. I could hear coming towards me, like speaking, whispering. It was kind of like, there's this expression, voices in the wind, voices on the wind, carried by the wind. So it was a little bit like this. Is that picking up? I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I can't understand it, but I can hear you doing something, yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was. I couldn't understand it, but I could quite audibly hear there was talking, and it seemed to be coming closer towards me. At this point, I wasn't thinking ghosts or spooks. I was thinking maybe, because there was a manor at the back of this, I was thinking maybe this is a security patrol, maybe it's like a park ranger, or maybe it is like a police car. So I was expecting some uniformed bloke in a high-vis vest coming along saying, "Oi, what you doing, blah 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 blah." Waiting. There's nothing there. It's a bit strange. No one here. There's literally nothing here. So got in my car, drove off. Now, although I'm like a psychic and a medium and intuitive, I also have a scientific hat as well. So I don't jump at the at the conclusion that everything's paranormal. So I don't like these ghost shows where, for instance, they hear a bang or a clatter. Oh my God, it's a spook, it's a spirit, you know, and suddenly everything's paranormal. To me, you have to, and I think Arthur Conan Doyle had this same mindset. You have to work out what the plausible and the explicable is before you go into the realms of the supernatural. So what I decided to do, I think it was about a week later or 2 weeks later, I visited my friend again in Ongar because we just kind of like hung out together. I then drove back and decided to test it again. It was a different day, a couple of weeks later, a different time. Okay, will it happen again? So I pull in deliberately, and just kind of like got out the car and just waited. Sure enough, same thing happened again. Now, what would be the chances of, if let's say there was a security patrol or some kind of park rangers, what would be the chances of them turning up again at the same time? I mean, you could argue maybe there was a camera, maybe they saw, but they didn't actually show themselves. But again, I heard this coming towards me again, expecting, well, there's got to be somebody there, but there never was. So yeah, baffling.
Okay. Well, tell us about, we were saying before, just before, tell us about an incident where you've actually, rather than, saying, show us a sign, flicker of the switch, and they've actually said, I'm here, how you doing? Something like that. Have you had incidents where you've actually under no doubt of what's going on?
Okay. In terms of actual speaking, no, but in terms of reply, yes. So there's a very haunted. Now this time, I think it was about, when was it, 5-10 years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. There was a ghost hunt investigation into Henrik's, which I think at that time was a hairdressers and beauty salon, and I think this was in Royston. I'm pretty sure it's in Royston. It was actually on Most Haunted, funnily enough. So Henrik's, I think now it might be solicitors, but it was a salon. So we're up there, and the most haunted part was there was like an upstairs kind of attic type area, which is kind of like a salon type area. And we were up there. We were at one side of the attic. It was quite a long attic, and we were kind of facing the dead area, kind of where there was nothing there. And I said very clearly, and this was actually on record because I actually filmed it. I said, if there's anybody there, can you give us 3 knocks? And I kid you not, and this was on camera as well, the other side of the room, not even close to us, the other side of the room, we heard. So that was a direct response, because if I'd said 1 knock, you could argue maybe somebody slammed a door, maybe it was like a lorry going past, maybe something downstairs had fallen over, but it was 3 distinct knocks, bump, bump, bump. That was pretty interesting. On that particular one as well, what we kept noticing, because we had like little groups in this, it was only a small group, but little groups going around Henrik's, with the EMF meters and that kind of thing, we were noticing that some of the signs with the menus of the treatments and the specialities that this shop has kept falling over. They're like A4 plastic kind of mounted things with a stand on them. And we kept trying to jog the table, like would it move if we jogged the table, and it wasn't really doing it, because again, we were looking for the logical explanations. Could a car vibration or a lorry vibration vibrate the table enough that they'd knocked over? And we showed that they couldn't do that. It was impossible. Yeah. And it kept happening. They kept falling over. So okay. Very strange.
Okay, well, we've almost got to go, but I just want to ask you, we're in a world at the moment that's in a bit of disarray, and we're all locked indoors, but hopefully we're safe and and we're well. What are you doing to keep yourself busy, knowing that you can't do what you normally do? You do psychic
psychic events,
psychic events, and you do ghost hunts. What are you doing to keep yourself busy at this time?
Well, a lot of people say, well, you should have seen that coming, which is a valid point. I would go back to, first of all, there were some psychics and mediums that did actually predict something big was happening. So time frames is a whole different story. We could spend an hour on how the universe works with time frames, but a lot of people were talking about, first of all, there's the 2012 thing, which I don't think much happened. But there were other psychics and mediums saying that the upcoming, there are going to be difficult times, that there could be a food shortage. I don't think they particularly said about a pandemic, although I think Sylvia Browne in her book many years ago did predict something like that. But I would say, in terms of why I didn't personally pick up on it, is that my view is that you focus on what you want to get back within a reading, within a clairvoyant environment. So I'm trying to focus on positivity and trying to focus on kind of positive, uplifting things. So this is why I feel I probably don't get the negative type things. There may be, well, some people who are psychics on the dark side, who love all the dark stuff and love to predict the dark things, and maybe they do get stuff. So that's personally why I probably didn't pick up on it. In terms of what I'm doing, my psychic events that were in pubs and clubs and things like that obviously are postponed until further notice. So what I'm trying to do now is promote online readings. And also I need to update my website, so I'm getting in kind of like a coding kind of frame of mind, which is completely different from the intuitive and clairvoyant frame of mind. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Other than that, just going for walks, trying to work out what's really going on. This could be a whole different show on what's really going on and how that marries up with the universe and the spirituality. I think the human race is being tested. I think we're in a war of light versus dark. I do think there is a dark side that's trying to enslave humanity, and I think there's a light side that's trying to ascend humanity. So it's a case of choose your side. You go dark or you go light. But that's a whole different show.
It is a very different show. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. We'll put your website in the notes underneath this video. So if people want to look you up and find out how they can contact you and maybe read some of your stuff. So anyway, you take care. Hopefully we'll get you back and talk about some of your other adventures in the future. And talk to you later.
Fantastic. Cheers, David.
See you. Bye-bye.
Take care.